What's up everybody, Super fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2016 Volkswagen Golf R. Huge thanks to Volkswagen for providing me with this very nice Golf R to review for you guys today. So about the 2016 Golf R here, well, I really like these. I think they're really cool, especially this one in this lapis blue metallic, looks really sharp. And I just like all the refinements they've made of the R. You know, it's understated yet still aggressive at the same time. You know, especially you have that bolder front bumper there that jets out a little bit more, and you have the more sophisticated headlights there. And in the back you have some nicer taillights, as well as the quad exhaust tips that you have here on the Rs. You got a couple little badges here and there, but nothing over the top, nothing crazy. And I really like how it's restrained aggression. It's really cool. Right, for the interior of the Golf R, well, it's a pretty cool place to be. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, very nice leather seats here that are unique to the R. You know, a little bit more aggressive here than your standard Golf would, of course, with some really perfect bolstering that just holds you in place really well, and they feel really good, but they're still very comfortable seats. The only caveat about these bolsters, though, is that the thigh support of the bolsters here comes to a point, and that kind of gets rubbed a lot whenever you're getting in and out of the car sometimes. And so, you know, just a little thing I think might get worn down over time or something like that. But like I said, great seats nonetheless. Next, the steering wheel in the Golf R, which is really well done, like all the other awesome Volkswagen steering wheels. A thin wheel that has a really perfect 9-3 grip, great little 10-2 notches, and nicely placed paddles here. And I love the contrast stitching, the flat bottom, the R badge you get here on the Golf Rs, and you know, just a few buttons that are all very easy to use, and doesn't look too cluttered at the same time, and overall just a great wheel. Gauges in the Golf R are pretty good, so you know, a little bit different than your standard Golf gauges, because the speedometer goes up to 200 miles per hour. I'm not sure why, but hey, I'll take it. And then on the left hand side there you have you know, the more aggressive tachometer as well. And I love the blue needles. I think that's a really cool touch. And you also do have a color center display here, unlike some of the lower end Golfs and things like that. That is full color, which is nice to have. And you have a few of your basic menus there to go through, and it'll display your infotainment stuff and things like that as well. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you have the same you know, basic Volkswagen system you get in all the other Volkswagens that have nav and whatnot, and the navigation's pretty good, although, you know, since for 2016 here you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in all Volkswagens with this screen here, so you know, you're going to want to rely on your smartphone maps, because those are usually a little bit quicker, a little more well done than the standard baked-in nav. But I mean, both work well, but it's just really nice to have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in these. But otherwise, though, you know, it's just a very responsive touchscreen, not the highest resolution or the slickest looking menus or anything. That's the one part where it kind of lacks a little bit. But you know, it still looks really good nonetheless. Everything works well, you know, as far as tuning the radio and all that kind of stuff, Bluetooth commands, everything like that works very well. Coming down to the climate controls and everything, again, same as any other Golf with automatic climate control. You know, pretty good feel to them. And you know, although I would say that once you're getting up to the price point of the Golf R, you know, they're starting to feel a little underwhelming for the money. But again, you're buying a Golf R for the performance, not for the interior. And overall, the interior materials are still very nice. I like the little ambient lighting that you get in here at night. That's really cool looking. As far as storage space in the Golf R, it has an interesting story. But anyway, first things first, you have this map pocket here on the doors with a large bottle holder. Very versatile little space there, and great to have that. Coming over to the center here, you have a USB jack and an auxiliary jack, as well as a very large cubby in there that'll easily fit any kind of smartphone that you like. And so really nice to have that there. And then coming back, you have two cup holders. They're a little bit on the smaller side. And then you have another small little like key pouch thing, and then a power outlet, also your electronic parking brake. And then you have the center armrest, which is very softly padded, very nice, and in other Volkswagens, it opens right up. But in this one, it doesn't open up. The reason why is there's some weird US regulation that says that if you have a drive shaft running to the back underneath of this, it needs to have a latch, and they don't have a latch for these. And so instead, they just bolted it shut. So apparently there was a modification process you can go through in order to unbolt that, and there is a usable area in there, but from the factory, it technically doesn't have one. Backseat space in the Golf R is surprisingly roomy, actually. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I still have several inches of leg room there, and plenty of headroom as well, thanks to the boxy shape. But you know, whenever you look at just how short the back of this car is, it's kind of amazing that the backseat is as roomy as it is. Trunk space in the Golf R is pretty good, but as you could expect, because of the short rear dimensions there isn't a ton of length in the trunk. I mean, it's acceptable. You could fit, you know, 2 suitcases there on the floor and then just stack from there if you'd like, because of the hatchback design. But you know, I think fitting 4 people's all their luggage in that hatch may be a little bit of a challenge. Those rear seats do fold down, of course, though, so if you only have 2 people, you have plenty of room galore. But you know, like I said, if you were carting 4 people around and all their luggage, it would definitely be a tight squeeze, because that hatch is pretty small, and unfortunately we don't get the Golf R wagon here in the States that they get in Germany, which would add a lot more practicality. Alright, so start up and go for a drive. Volkswagens, of course, just have a nice key fob here with the switchblade still. But anyway, you can just leave that in your pocket because it's keyless entry and push button start. So you just hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the 2016 Volkswagen Golf R. Well, like I said, this one is the automatic, the DSG here. So, you know, starting out from a stop, it certainly is a little bit more laggy, I think, than the standard DSGs or the other, you know, 6-speed automatics that Volkswagen currently offers. It still is pretty good, though. I'm splitting hairs here. It's certainly still better than Mercedes' dual clutch system and some others out there. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, the visibility, though, is spectacular in the Golf R. I mean, the hood drops down so you can't even see it. Huge windshield to see forward. You know, you have very nice large side windows as well. B-pillar isn't too thick, so you can see around that very easily. View out of the back is great as well, too, with that rear hatch. And yeah, overall, it feels like you're driving around in a bubble, honestly, and it's got excellent visibility. Alright, so we'll put the transmission into manual mode here, and let's turn down on this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. Okay. Woo. All right, this thing gets up and goes really well. There's a little bit of a delay there, but once it gets up and goes, it goes really well. You just have a little growl there under the hood, and that's it. No exhaust sounds really to speak of here in the cabin. Anyway, though, you have 292 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque from this 2-liter turbocharged engine, the same one in the GTI, just turned up and reinforced a little bit. And so, yeah, it's very impressive, though, especially with this DSG. It'll actually get a 4.5 second 0 to 60 time here with the DSG. If you go for the manual, then you got about 5.2 instead, so it's a good amount slower. It's got a good little sound though to it with this little growl. I do wish there was more sound though. But it certainly pulls strong, that's for sure. Other things to know about the Golf R though is it is extremely smooth. It's really amazing. I mean, we're on a smooth road here, but still, I mean, the Golfs, all of them really soak up bumps very well. And this one has the dynamic chassis control, which I currently have in the normal mode. There is a comfort mode though that would make it even smoother yet. And then there's also a race mode, which I'm assuming firms things up a little bit. But honestly, I think the normal mode so far just feels just fine. And yeah, it's just a very nice thing to cruise around in. Another quick little acceleration. Yeah, this thing, it's got so much grip too, thanks to this all-wheel drive system. It's a Holodex all-wheel drive. There's still front-wheel drive biased, I believe, but I mean, there is no wheel spin. I mean, it makes sure that all of the power gets to the ground without any kind of wheel spin whatsoever, which is how I think this actually has a little more thrust than the GTI, not only because it has more power upright, but it also has, you know, the additional grip to put that power to the ground. But coming up to this tight corner here, and let's see how the handling is. Already turn-in is fantastic. And wow, yeah, it's really flat. I mean, it has a little bit of lean to it, but I like it because it really just allows you to carve up these corners so well. but it feels small. It feels pretty lightweight still, which is not one of the strongest suits. This is the heaviest of the Golfs here, with this one being around 3,400 pounds, and that's mostly because of the all-wheel drive system, of course, which adds a good amount of weight. But it honestly does not feel that heavy. I'd say this still feels easily 3,200 pounds or something like that. And this transmission is great with downshifting immediately to your commands. And yeah, I mean, it's handling it all really without a sweat, but it's engaging and it's fun. Excellent steering weight that loads up really nicely when you start getting into it. And yeah, everything feels great. The brakes also, are Meteor here on the R, and they feel very good as well. Yeah, I'm trying to get it to misbehave or step out or understeer or something, and it's just perfectly neutral in the way that this is set up here. And I'm not sure if that's just because of the dynamic chassis control. I've heard that the standard Golf R suspension is also fantastic, so I think it's just the innate traits here of the Golf R and Golfs in general all handle extremely well. And so yeah, it's just a really fun thing. I will say though, it's not very dramatic. I mean, you just point and shoot, but if you really want to carve up a back road, then that's what you want. You want to have the grip, and you want to have the reassurance of the car to be right there with you and not give you any scares or anything like that. And yeah, like I said, this transmission combined with the awesome all-wheel drive system and the plentiful power just work in concert so well to just give you a very thrilling driving experience. Another acceleration. Sounds really great under full throttle, especially. Oh man, you do have a little bit of road noise, but honestly it's extremely refined in here too, so you don't really hear much from the outside, and that's just because of how refined it is. Yeah, it definitely feels like a little bit of a higher quality than your standard STI or something as far as the refinement and all that kind of stuff goes. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this thing so far. But I'm going to drive this around for an entire week here, thanks to Volkswagen lending it to me, and I'll come back and give you guys all my final impressions. Should be fun! Alright, so I've been driving the 2016 Volkswagen Golf R for an entire week now, and I gotta say, it's a really nice thing to live with, honestly, and that's something that can't always be said about some of these other hot hatches and other, vehicles that this competes against. So in my week of driving here, as far as fuel economy goes, I got 23.3, and the city estimate for this car is 23, and it's supposed to do 30 on the highway, according to the EPA, for a combined average of 25. Now, my driving was primarily city, so that mark is pretty accurate to me of 23.3. And so a pretty good fuel economy though for something with almost 300 horsepower and all-wheel drive. It's better than a comparable STI or something like that. Of course, that engine is 10 years old compared to this being relatively new and modern here, and a lot smaller, of course, being 2 liters too. But yeah, I mean, otherwise though, it actually it's kind of a good and a bad thing how much this feels like a standard Golf or like a GTI, because aside from I love the little blue accents that this has that differentiates it from the GTIs and things like that. At night, this car looks so cool with those little LED strips on the doors and on the door sills, and I really, really love the way this thing looks at night. Also, just the rear taillights and everything, just at night, this car looks really cool. So, I like those things that they use to differentiate it, from the other lesser Golfs, but it still drives, especially here with this, DSG transmission, it drives a lot like all the other Golfs. And so that's why, unless you need all-wheel drive, like you live in a snowy place, you want all-wheel drive, or you really, really hate any kind of, front-wheel drive wheel spin antics that you might get with something, although that stuff has been greatly reduced here with the, current Mark 7 GTI. It's really, really good. And you can go watch, I drove one of those like 2 years ago, really, really enjoyed it. You can go watch that video if you're curious about the GTI. But, this thing now, speaking on price, this one is $41,000. with, you know, the DSG and whatnot. So if you go with a manual, then it's, you know, probably like $1,000 cheaper or so. And this one also has all the safety tech on it. Now, if you were to get, you know, one without all the safety tech, I think for 2017 though, the safety tech is standard, and I think they might have actually lowered the price a tad so that you get, you know, everything. Like, it's just fully loaded for 2017 for the standard price of, you know, $40,000 or so. So, and if you don't need all-wheel drive, you know, I think as far as the horsepower difference between like this and the GTI, you know, you're looking at a good amount of difference there, you know, 70 odd horsepower. But it honestly, maybe it's because of the all-wheel drive system, I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like it's that much faster than a GTI. I mean, it certainly does feel faster and puts the power down much better, which, you know, makes it pull a lot harder, but it's not quite as extreme as you might expect for something with 292 horsepower. So honestly, unless you just must have the fastest Golf possible or you need all-wheel drive, honestly, I think the GTI is a way better value because you get basically the same interior as, you know, the Golf R here, and you actually get an option to get a moonroof in the GTI too, which is nice. That is not an option in the R, unfortunately. But yeah, so I mean, you know, you can get a GTI for what, $26,000 or something, obviously with less options than this. If you were to do a fully loaded GTI, you're probably looking at 30 or so, and so it's like an extra 10 grand here for all-wheel drive and the extra power. Whether or not that's worth it, I personally think, you know, the GTI would be enough, and of course you could always, you know, tweak it a little bit, tune it or whatever if you wanted a little more power. But honestly, I think the standard GTI is plenty, but this is just if, like I said, you want the top dog or the all-wheel drive. You know, around here, you know, it does get very snowy, and so, you know, for that reason alone, you know, if it were me, I would probably pick the Golf R over the GTI for that simple reason alone. But, you know, if that's not a concern to you, you live in a sunny place where, you know, it doesn't really get too much snow, or the snow is manageable, then, you know, I think the GTI is probably the best, I think, value for your money still. And the GTI has been, you know, one of the best bangs for your buck, you know, for decades now, and so I don't think that has really changed. But the Golf R, I'm so glad they still continue to bring these here to the States, even though it is kind of a niche vehicle, because they are still tons of fun. But yeah, honestly, in my week of driving here, there's really nothing that I could really complain about. Like I said, I wish the exhaust was a little more throaty, but that's easy to fix in the aftermarket if you so desire. But aside from that, you know, the transmission though, the dual clutch, it is a little shuddery, I suppose, and not perfectly smooth and flawless. And, you know, again, other Volkswagens in the past have been pretty much flawless, so I'm not sure, you know, if it's just unique to the Golf R here or what. I mean, it still is very, very good, and like I said, I am nitpicking at its finest right now. But, you know, there are times where if you're slowly creeping up, you know, it can get a tiny bit unrefined with the way that it inches up there with the clutch. But, I mean, like I said, these are really, really small, minor complaints on a car that's otherwise fantastic. And that's, honestly, that's been the theme with basically every Volkswagen that I've reviewed. I'm not like a Volkswagen fanboy or anything, you know, I'm a Super Dubbworks fan, but I gotta say, every single Volkswagen product, they all handle amazingly well for what, you know, class they're competing in. They're all just fantastic, you know, fun, and the refinement is always top notch, and I never have anything to complain about really with the Golfs or any of the Volkswagens for that matter. The final thing I want to mention is the competition. So the main competition I would say for this car is the Ford Focus RS and the Super Dubbworks STI, really. You know, you could say stuff like the Audi S3, but that's basically the same car as this, just in a sedan form, and obviously Audi has made it a little bit nicer since it's an Audi, not a Volkswagen. So I would say, you know, basically the Focus RS and the Dubbworks STI, and really only the Focus RS because that's the only other hatchback here. And I mean, compared to the Focus RS, this is miles better in refinement, in comfort, and livability. The Focus RS has a pretty stiff suspension. The driving position isn't quite as nice. The seats are a lot more aggressive. It's just a lot more hardcore because it's an RS model. But that's the only way you get all-wheel drive in a Focus. And this is a whole lot easier to live with. It's not as dramatic as the Focus RS. It's not as crazy. This is just more mature. This is the hot hatch for someone that wants a hot hatch but doesn't want to, you know, make a statement, be, you know, in your face with it. You know, wants something that's easy to live with, still very, you know, refined and grown up in the way that it delivers its power, and it's fun. It still is fun. It's still, I mean, it handles, it'll do anything you ask of it. It's plenty fast. It looks cool, I think, still, but it's just not as as flamboyant and crazy as the Focus RS. And for some people, that's the whole fun of a hot hatch, is the craziness. For others though, you know, if you just want, you know, something that's fun, that's, you know, small but versatile still, and has the all-wheel drive and great power, I mean, this is really in a league of its own. And there's not really anything else, like I said, this refined. It's a hatchback that, you know, comes in at this price point, and it's just a really, really cool thing. And so yeah, I mean, can't go wrong with this or the GTI. Both are great. I just love these Mark 7 Golfs. They're fantastic. But yeah, so huge thanks to Volkswagen for allowing me to review this Golf R here for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Golf R, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.